Leviticus 13:14 says, "Now the leper on whom the sore is, his clothes shall be torn and his head bare, and he shall cover his mustache or his mouth and cry out, 'Unclean, unclean.'" So once someone's been declared a leper, they have to make all these outward expressions, walking around with torn clothes all the time, always, whenever someone is near, crying out, "Unclean, unclean, don't come near me, don't come close to me, I am sinful." Does it sound harsh? Far from it. Disease is a result of sin and represents what sin does. Sin separates us from God, it separates us from ourselves, and it separates us from others. So now, with that in mind, this leper approached, and he came and worshiped him, saying, "Lord, if you're willing, make me clean." So it starts off with this word, behold. Anytime you see the word behold, we don't use that in our modern idiom so much. We usually say, look, or check this out, right? We have all sorts of exclamations that say, pay attention to this, or listen to me, or listen up. I'm only going to say this once, right? But that's what Matthew's getting at here with this word idu. Behold, pay attention. Something remarkable, striking, unusual happened. Something out of the ordinary. And what's out of the ordinary is this leper came up and worshiped him. It's imperfective in its aspect, and that means that he was actively worshiping him. Now, this is an amazing point that we might miss, and that's that Jesus Christ does not stop this leper from worshiping him. The holy angels of heaven, when they are accidentally worshiped by someone, they immediately say, "Stop, don't worship me. I'm not the Lord. I am just a servant of the Lord." But when this leper came actively and repeatedly, continually worshiping Jesus, Jesus did not tell him not to, because it was appropriate, and it is always appropriate, to worship Jesus Christ, the Son of God. And then consider this statement for a moment. If you're willing, Lord, which could be sir, or could be a declaration of something more, but certainly it's great respect. If you're willing, you can make me clean. If you're willing. He recognizes seemingly in this statement, no matter how much he felt it, that God's will for his life may not be that he be healed. It's an amazing statement of humility. If you are willing, if you think it's best, Lord, if it's your plan for my life, then you can heal me. Now, this "you can" is interesting because we might think of this as permission, but it's kind of absurd. He's begging him for this miracle, but what he's really doing is making a statement of fact. He says, "I know, I believe that you are who you said you are. Therefore, if you're willing, the only thing keeping me from being healed in this situation is whether or not you're willing to do it, whether or not you think it's best, whether or not you think it's appropriate." You can imagine what it was like for this leper as he stood off in the distance, straining to hear the amazing, the miraculous words of the Sermon on the Mount, as he was filled with such hope, as this image, this picture of God displayed in his Son, of a God who cares, who loves, who longs to redeem and restore and repair, and then finally recognizing that not only does this person teach rightly about the character and plan of God, but he also has the power of God to change this situation. So he says, "You can make me clean." We should notice the focus here is not just on the physical cleansing, but on the ritual cleansing. You see, the most painful thing about leprosy was not the fact that your body was breaking down, and it was breaking down. In fact, this man is full of leprosy. He is just absolutely plagued by it, his entire body undoubtedly stinking and falling apart. But the reality is that, as we all know, maybe even too painful a form, our bodies all fall apart. It's only a matter of time, right? Ultimately, we will all, physically die and decay. So that's not the hardest thing to deal with. The hardest thing to deal with leprosy is the isolation from God, from being able to worship in the temple, and the isolation from all your family and friends, your society and culture. I think between the physical cleansing and the ritual cleansing, the ability to participate in the people of God and the society that God had put out was far more interesting to him. This man couldn't go to the temple, And surely in his present state, he was not qualified to enter into that kingdom that Jesus had just taught about so perfectly. So could Jesus prepare him, even him, a leper? Could Jesus make even the most unclean and disqualified person, though through no fault of his own, could he make him qualified for the kingdom? The law couldn't do it. All that the law enabled people to do is to point out, that's a leper, he's unclean, he doesn't get to come to temple, he doesn't get to come to Passover, he doesn't get to come to Rosh Hashanah, he doesn't get to come to he is outside and he stays outside, and that's all the law can do. And it's the same with you today. The law cannot make you one iota more righteous, and that's why that Paul says so clearly that the sin shall not have mastery over you because you are not under law, but under grace. The law, living life under law, only shows us what a failure we are. It is only the grace of God that can make us fit. So he was coming, showing his absolute unqualification, his uncleanliness, and begging Jesus to make him qualified, to make him, cleanse him.